Good evening, you're watching the main news on HKIBC. I'm Harminder Singh.
And I'm Carain. Here's a look at tonight's top stories. Task Force on Land Supply Chairman rejects claims recent public consultation was fake.
Education Minister questions if Cantonese is suitable as a teaching language and urges Hong Kongers to use Mandarin more.
And various parties and groups make final demands ahead of Chief Executive's policy address on Wednesday.
Task Force on Land Supply Chairman Stanley Wong rejected claims that the recent public consultation was fake.
He also told HKIBC that there was no evidence that the East Lantau Metropolis plan was feasible. Riley Chan reports.
The government's appointed task force on land supply was established in September last year to find ways to plug a 1,200-hectare land shortfall for housing and economic development. A public consultation was launched in April to solicit opinions from different sectors of society. A final report is expected to be submitted to Chief Executive Carrie Lam by the end of the year. But several top government officials have already voiced their support for reclamation ahead of the policy address. Lam herself called reclamation inevitable. With government officials making such statements, critics accused the consultation exercise of being fake. But the task force's chairman Stanley Wong disagreed. He told HKIBC that he believed the chief executive would only outline a general direction on land supply in her policy address. If the final report submitted by the task force suggested a different direction, the government would rethink its strategy.
When it comes to land supply options, I think a matter of 2 months or 3 months, doesn't mean anything because land supply will take time. Reclamation would definitely take 15 or 20 years to complete. I don't think the government would then take a pre-position ahead of the task force submitting our report by the end of the year. Within the policy address, there will be adequate coverage on some of the options, but not a conclusive, I think, decision on any one of them.
Multiple sources have said the East Lantau Metropolis project would appear in the upcoming policy address. The plan would require reclamation of at least 1,000 hectares of land in the middle of the sea between Hong Kong Island and Lantau. But Wong said there was currently no evidence to support the project's feasibility.
We had yet to collect all the data, so the task force would not be able to conclude if there are enough support for the reclamation around the midwater for East Lantau Metropolis.
Wong said the task force will carefully analyze the opinions collected from the public consultation and develop holistic suggestions on how to tackle the land shortage in a final report. Riley Chan, HKIBC.
Education Minister Yeung has come under fire for questioning if Cantonese was suitable as a teaching language in the long run.
Yeung believed Mandarin was a more favorable language compared to Cantonese and suggested residents start to use it more in their daily lives. Yupina Ng reports.
Is there anyone in the world who learns Chinese through Cantonese? None. The controversial remarks were made by Education Secretary Yeung on a radio program today, where he suggested Hong Kongers start using more Mandarin in their daily lives. Yeung questioned if it would be sustainable for the city's population to learn Chinese through Cantonese, as the trend favored Mandarin. He warned that using the dialect as a teaching language could mean Hong Kong would lose its edge in the long run. The education minister believed the matter should be studied by experts. Yeung said he acknowledged that Cantonese sometimes had advantages over Mandarin, but he wondered, wouldn't it be better if people could learn or use more Mandarin in their daily lives? Education sector lawmaker Yeung criticized Yeung for his comments and urged him to study the matter closely before making any suggestions.
When we come to language, especially our mother tongue, it's not always about competitiveness. There's a kind of sense of belonging. There's a kind of an identity. There's a kind of the emotional connection between oneself and the language.
The Education Bureau press secretary defended Yeung's remarks, saying he did not question the effectiveness of learning Chinese through Cantonese. Yupinam, HKIBC.
Various political parties and concern groups made their final demands ahead of Chief Executive Carrie Lam's policy address on Wednesday.
Most of the demands touched on housing and land issues. Chief Executive Carrie Lam is set to deliver her policy address in 3 days. Various groups made their final demands today over what they wanted from the address. About 60 participants joined the Society for Community Organization at government headquarters to hand a petition. Many were subdivided flat tenants. Apart from improved poverty alleviation policies, the organization demanded the proportion of public housing in new home supplies be increased from 60 to 70%. They also wanted more temporary flats for people waiting for public housing. The Democratic Party gave their views on land supply, which Lam was expected to talk about. The government is likely to adopt a public-private partnership model to develop farmland in the new territories. But party chairman Wu Chi-wai said such a model could draw concerns of authorities colluding with developers.
We urge the government to make use of the government land resumption ordinance instead of the PPP program to take up more farmland or brownfield in the new territory and then build up the public housing flat for the people of Hong Kong.
Meanwhile, the Federation of Trade Unions urged the government to put forward a timetable for the construction of a public wet market in Tin Shui Wai, which was proposed in last year's policy address. FTU lawmaker Alice Mack called it a pressing issue for residents in the district, as the private markets run by the link REIT had driven up prices.
The people living in Tin Shui Wai, in fact, they can't afford. So